One. Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. This is Scott Ferguson. I got kind of a homeboy here. We're both down in South Florida. I'll mention that much. He's a really good friend of mine that went through hell and back. We'll just start there. I'm going to let him share his story. His name's John Egan, and he's a person that's in long-term recovery who's found the darkest moments are the beacon of light for others seeking a new way to love. And you've heard we're going to probably get a little candid on some of our conversation here. It's going to, you could take us down a little bit of a dark path, and again, it's time to shine today is the name of the show, squad. So he helps people shine now, and what better place did it to come from than somebody that actually has went through that hell and back, and he's walked the talk, and however that cliche goes. So John Egan, please come on, introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. But first, what's your favorite color, John, and why?
Blue.
Blue.
Yeah, I have blue eyes, and they come through. My parents have blue eyes, and they were an asset growing up. They're people always bring notice to them, so I just kind of fell in love with blue.
I love it, dude. And you're also like, if you're watching our YouTube channel or whatnot, he's like pulled right off the cover of GQ magazine, dude. The dude is like a handsome mofo. So, but no, seriously, John, let's get a little bit of the roots. And we talked off camera, off mic. You can share. I know you're an open book. You share with me. I want this squad out there of listeners to hear your story.
Excellent. Yeah. Where do we begin? So I was a guy that kind of always thought I needed to be the best. My parents never told me that. I just had this like distorted belief. And because I wasn't the front of the newspaper athlete like my siblings, I just was going to be the best student. So I always joke around. My mom brings it up often. I was in 7th grade. I knew I was going to be taking Spanish in 8th grade. So I was watching Univision that summer just to have an edge edge up. And like I was a straight A student. I actually got an academic scholarship to college. And I don't say that to brag. I say that almost because my addiction, I found out, was always smarter. I was too smart to be an addict. I could not be that. And yeah, addiction doesn't care how smart you are. I've actually never met anyone too dumb to get sober, but I met a lot of people that I think they're way too smart for it. So. Wow.
So how'd you say that? Too dumb to get sober?
I've never met anyone too dumb to get sober. It's not rocket science. It actually is it's a very simple path. It just takes a lot of internal work, I believe. We got this like internal discord that says I'm not good enough. I'm always comparing myself to others. The world's out to get me. This one's doing that. And I always found relief in the substance. So, and before I knew it, I just become dependent upon it.
Wow. And so is there any kind of some crazy stories that you kind of went through during your finding relief in the substance?
Yeah. So I did so I was a very successful 6-figure kind of, I was developing software around the world, and then became an investment banker. And on paper, everything was perfect. And for a while, the drinking and the drugs amplified my life.
Mm-hmm.
It made me a better salesperson. It made me funnier. It made me wittier. It made me better in bed. It made me the most popular. But I didn't realize that it was kind of a lie. And lo and behold, kind of just like a lot of people's story, what was once a luxury became a necessity. And I don't remember when, but I just needed it to get through a day. I had found myself out in Arizona. This was kind of one of my darkest moments. I found myself in Arizona, and I went to a rehab because I'd burned all my bridges. And I think at that time I wanted to be sober, but I didn't really know how to. And me and a guy, we just decided we were going to go get high one more time and do what we always did and say, I'm sorry, and please let me back. And I don't know what happened, but we went down to Phoenix, Arizona, and we found what we were looking for. He took a hit and kind of like bugged out, as they say. He
Sure.
kind of like got a little weird. And I was like, I do not want to get high with this guy. Right. And I was just, so I went off and I continued to use, and I was just going to use that day and go back. And one day became 5.5 months on the streets. And at first I was the cardboard sign on the side of the road. And then it kind of led to the sex industry. And I violated every sexual value I've ever held dear for $5, $10.
Wow.
And that was all the things I never, like when I'm talking about being intelligent, it's not a very intelligent move to compromise your value system for money. But anyone that's ever worked in the sex industry, you do something for money to forget about what you just did for money. But then you come down and you got to do it again. And
and John, that all circles back to that necessity, right? That necessity of the luxury and finding relief in that substance. So you were doing what you felt, no matter if it broke your moral barriers, doing what you had to do to get to where you wanted to be at that time, right?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that like drugs and alcohol are the problem. To me, they're always a solution. It's a solution that works temporarily.
Sure.
But it's never the problem. Me thinking it's not going to get that bad is the problem. But it's not the drink or the drug that's the problem. It's me thinking it's not going to be exactly the way it's been every time. When I'm only going to have one, or I joke around when you hear people say, "Hey, let's go get a drink." So, "Hey, you want to go get a drink on Friday?" Just by that statement alone, no, I never want of anything. I want lots of everything. So even just that, but no, yeah, I can't successfully use. I one leads to a million, and then I do things against my value system, and I want to kill myself. So
wow, man, it takes a man to like actually say that and admit that, because most of us men are like, oh, I can handle, and you've obviously have sought the help out. And can you tell a little bit of story about maybe the last time that you decided to find that luxury and use, and then how you, lack of a better term for the listeners out there, get clean?
Yeah. So after being homeless, I do remember reaching out. I do remember reaching out and asking for help again. And my parents flew me home. And I swore, like the darkness, because they thought I was dead. They were searching for me. I never like vanished for 5 months. And so I was just like, it was so bad. I just knew I would never be able to use again, because it got that bad. And I landed in Philadelphia, and my father gave me a job, and I was making 6 figures again, and I got paid once, and I did it again. So it was almost like even me swearing I was never going to do it. And by that point, with the pain that I put everyone through, my only decision was to kill myself. And so August 15th of 2007, I tried to poison myself, and God had a different plan that day. And I don't shy away from that word anymore. I didn't believe in God for a while, but God had a different plan for me that day.
For you.
And lo and behold, I actually began my journey then. But as I come to find out, I really knew nothing about what sobriety was. I just wasn't using. And to me, they used to be synonymous. Like if I don't smoke crack, I'm sober. If I don't drink, I'm sober. But actually it has nothing to do with, to me, sobriety means kind of a new lifestyle. And I learned a lot of lessons that way as well.
What kind of stuff is included in that new lifestyle of sobriety? Obviously, outside the obvious of not using.
Yeah. So my whole life used to be on, I want what I want, and I want it now, and I'm going to kind of manipulate or charm anyone to get through it. If I'm stronger than you, I will take it by force. And if I'm weaker than you, then I will just manipulate you. Yeah. And I'll steal your stuff and then help you look for it. That whole, you hear that often, but actually I remember it, I took something from someone, and he was like, "Where is it?" And I was like, "I don't know, let's look for it." But it was in my pocket, but of course I have to be the nice guy looking for it.
Right.
So the lifestyle that I choose to kind of live today is kind of based on like principles of integrity and discipline and responsibility and accountability. I didn't know that when I stopped using in August. And so I kind of, whether you want to call it a dry drunk or a scumbag or whatever it was, I was still hurting people not using, not realizing that I was hurting people not using. So I put the drugs down, but I was continuing to be very selfish and entitled and do things that were illegal. So
was there like a moment where you're like, wait a minute, this is bullshit what I'm doing? And like what made you come into the new lifestyle? Because where you're at right now, if you want to share where you're at right now and with helping people, that's fine. But you're at a pretty high level area. dealing with some high level clientele.
Yeah.
So it's, it's like, what made that say someone's going to hire you to do that after what you went through?
So I just used the word scumbag in early recovery, but basically just kind of living in selfishness in early recovery. I finally met someone that kind of called me on my BS, right?
You can say it. We're fine.
Oh yeah, he called me on my shit, and
Sure.
he asked me what I did for a living, and I think it was like 7 or 8 months abstinent, right? Like I said, I don't stay sober. And I had dressed up the outside, right? So I had the Gucci belt and the Gucci shoes and the really nice, Hemi with the sports car with the tinted windows. It's embarrassing to look back at. But anyhow, I like dressed up the outside because the inside was still broken. And he asked me what I did for a living, and I told him. And in my head, I developed software, but in reality, I was working for a company that was a complete scam. So he told me, he's like, well, you're a thief still. And I was like, I'm not a thief. I'm a software developer. And he laid it down, and he's like, no, you're a thief. And he said he doesn't work with thieves. And if I wanted to kind of have some integrity for the first time, I would walk away from that business. And it took a bit, but there was something about what he said. And I kind of walked away, and I put myself back into school, and I became a clinician in the state of Florida to actually help other people that struggle with drugs. And that kind of went on for the next 5 years. I was a certified addiction professional. I was working as a primary therapist at a facility. And I was married at the time, and I had a baby along the way. And then a car pulled up outside, then all the other stuff, like the material stuff, the house and all that. But that's not kind of where the value, I find value today. Sure. It's nice to have, but that doesn't.
Absolutely.
That's only temporary. And so I'm outside my house, and this car pulls up, and they said, are you John Thomas Egan? And I was like, a little bit weird that they knew my middle name, but I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, yeah. And they said, oh, you're served. And so that company I worked for in the beginning of my recovery was being indicted by the federal government. And so that was my first legal issues. Even in my crack addiction and alcoholism, I never kind of had legal issues.
Sure.
And here I am 5 years sober, and I was facing 27 years in a maximum security prison.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild.
And you didn't turn back to using.
That's the most amazing kind of, if I have any message for anyone who's struggling or might be facing some legal issues,
right.
Don't not know how they're going to stay sober. The path of recovery that I had entered at that point, the obsession was lifted. And even when I was facing that heavy prison time, the thought of using never crossed my mind.
Sure.
I know, and I'm not cured, and I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I was really faced with and so it was kind of neat is, that was if I went to trial. So I ended up taking a plea deal, and I got charged with 60 months, and I went to prison sober. And it was everything I didn't want to do. I was scared.
Sure.
But what I didn't realize is that I guess God needed me to carry a message of hope into the penal system, because there's a lot of me in there, like a lot of people that use and struggle with drugs and substances are in prison. And so even though I didn't want to be there, I was kind of, I guess, God's vessel in there to carry a message of hope no matter what. And then in the end, it all ended up being the best. It's the best blessing I've ever had, because my pain is now useful for someone.
Yeah, that is incredible. Wow. So pain is useful for someone. Now, when you left, or you made it through that, we'll call it a debacle of a situation, and
a blessing or a debacle.
Yeah, blessing or a de-blessing. We'll call it a de-blessing, right?
De-blessing, sure.
But so like you built up through your friend that kind of held you accountable, your principles, integrity, discipline, accountability. Like when you made it through that de-blessing, and you're at kind of where you're at now, how do you view the people coming in to get clean? And is there any good questions that they should be asking of their their sponsor even? Is there any good question they should be asking their sponsor that they never do?
So I've learned, and my father kind of, he used always to say, there is no easy way.
Sure.
There's no easy way. All of the greatest things you ever will find in your life will come through hard work. And of course I was like, Dad, I didn't listen, but
right.
It's the truth. If you're new in recovery and there's no shortcuts.
No.
So if you're in a high sales position and you're selling dirty, or you're lying to get the sale, or you're kind of living in whatever you want to, how, morality takes a big compass. But if you're deceiving people to get ahead, I would argue that you're not sober, you're abstinent.
Got it.
Sober people don't hurt people. Sober people have to live on a new set of principles of like, how can I be most useful to you? How can I be most useful in this world that is like not what I want, but what's best for everyone else? And that kind of like shift in a mindset, it makes all of our obstacles opportunities. It makes all of our pain useful to be able to be used by someone else. You've always heard, you put your hand on a stove, you can learn from it. But like, if I watch you put your hand on the stove, I can learn from that too. So anytime I meet anyone in early recovery and they are, right away, right? They're womanizing, or they're hurting, they're stealing from Target, or they're at a call center and they're lying to people. I just kind of let them know, like, listen, I'm not here to judge you. I'm just letting you know this is possibly what could happen. Are you willing to pay for the consequences, or are you actually willing to learn a new way of life? Not just put the drugs down and be a scumbag. I hope that word isn't. I hope that word's not offensive. But when I'm using, there is nothing I won't do to get my next one.
Sure.
I will hurt you. I will kill you. I don't want to kill you, but I will if I have to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that old like hurting people to still get what I want, it's not a sober lifestyle.
Right.
So
and you're basically living not sober, you're living abstinent.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much more that goes into sobriety. I love that. I think, John, that's the first time ever. And I grew up in a household where my dad was an alcoholic from Vietnam, and he had bad. He's almost 40 years sober now, and he has high integrity, solid discipline. But I was that lost child, that middle child, that had that in the family model. So interesting. So, John, have you seen the movie Back to the Future? All right, let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. Let's go back to the 22-year-old John.
Yeah.
What kind of knowledge nuggets, as we call him here at Time to Shine today, what kind of knowledge nuggets are you dropping on the 22-year-old John to maybe help him level up, shorten his learning curve, and blast through?
This might surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mess with anything.
Nothing.
Absolutely not.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
So, in the course of going to prison, my first marriage did not work out.
Sure.
And all those, like, the feelings I felt, like betrayed, abandoned, all that, right? What I didn't realize was that was also a blessing as well, because when I got out and then moved around, I actually ended up meeting my current wife.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a child as well. And so every time I look at my little kid, Finn, if I changed anything in the past, I would never have Finn. If I didn't go to prison, I wouldn't be able to possibly be of service to somebody facing legal stuff now.
Right.
The most amazing thing about what I've learned through it all is my ownership of my part has allowed me to be in a place of forgiveness, to allow actual true peace and serenity for all parties. Like my oldest son with my ex-wife, we actually all kind of do. It's people ask all the time, like, what do you mean you have family dinner? Well, why wouldn't we?
Sure.
Like if my oldest knows that I still love his mom, we're just not together.
Right. Love in a different way. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we actually have this like blended family where this year is the first year we're not doing joint Halloween, but we always do our holidays together. We're actually going to do Christmas together, which you would think was weird, but it's going to be myself, my wife, my two boys, and then my ex, her husband, and their new kid. and like we're just gonna kind of
That's
celebrate
cool.
holidays together. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's an awesome family model to really build on. And it shows that forgiveness, not only for yourself, but all the other people and everything in your life. So, John, how do you want your dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your death date. How do you want that dash in your tombstone remembered, brother?
There's a quote, and I'm not smart enough to come up with it myself, but
You're fine.
I love the I may not be what I want to be, but at least I'm not who I was. Like this continual growth. My perceptions change constantly. My experiences change, which kind of alters my reality. But if I can be a better human being today than I was yesterday,
That's
then
awesome.
it was kind of worth it.
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah. What are we doing to change? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, John, that's how I ask this. What keeps you up at night, John?
A baby that doesn't sleep. I will. You know what? I don't know. It's kind of funny you say that. I talk about this often.
Sure.
So in my own journey of wellness, I kind of had to uncover kind of some garbage in the past and kind of put it into its proper place.
Sure.
But that's like the work that I've needed to do. It's kind of like look at my part in all of my issues and resentments and hatred, and like I own a part in all that.
Sure.
The work that I've done allows me to have a conscious free pillow.
Love it.
I used to be a pillow flipper, 22 times.
Right.
And what I didn't realize is that I was just anxious and stressed about, I don't know, something stupid I said in 8th grade or the job that I'm going to have next week. Like I was never in the present moment, but as a sober man today, I sleep very peacefully.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I love that conscious free pillow, man. I actually wrote that down. That's fantastic. So what do you think then, John, people misunderstand about you the most?
Oh, wow, we're gonna go there. So I never realized I wasn't a fat kid, but I wasn't in shape as a kid.
Right.
And I didn't realize that I suffered with like an eating disorder.
Wow.
I was bulimic in high school.
Wow. Man.
And I never realized, like looking back, that my cocaine addiction was just an offshoot of my eating disorder. Because when you're doing cocaine, you don't eat, so I don't have to worry about being fat. And then when I got sober, now I've become have to go to the gym every day.
Sure.
And what this kind of like extroverted, dynamic personality that I embrace it. But it really is this like starved little boy who was ignored,
Okay.
just because he wasn't on the front of the newspaper. And so I have to realize that my personality is I still have a lot of what they call inner child work to do. And there's moments that I'm okay and everything's great. And the other moments that maybe I come off a little abrasive or arrogant or what have you. But all it is
sure.
It's just hey, look at me. It's the middle child. Like,
right.
Hey, I'm over here.
I'm here, dude.
And you could be paying attention to me, but it's not enough attention.
Right.
And so I know that might bother some people. The other thing I think I was nicknamed the rainbow farter sometimes. I walk around with a smile a lot. Right. I laugh a lot. And it's
right.
People that are upset have issues with people that are happy. But my truth is I am truly joyful today.
Good.
The world is a beautiful, beautiful place.
It is, John. It is. So tell me, let's take our cell phone out of this equation, our laptop, our tablets, everything. Quickly, what are 3 things that John can't live without?
There's a book that I read often. It's from A Secret Society. Mm-hmm. My wedding ring.
Nice.
Means a lot to me.
Good.
Toothbrush.
My man, get them pearly whites, get them going.
Well, I say that when I was homeless, so I was a crack whore by every definition of that right. statement. But the people that I got high with that were also homeless didn't have teeth, and even though I was literally eating out of a dumpster with them, they had an issue, not me, because I had my teeth. So it's almost like this dress up the outside
Yeah,
because the
man.
inside's still broken. But even being homeless, my toothbrush was a sole possession I had. And my
Son, you're
toothbrush
proud.
is important to me.
Yeah, proud. You're proud about with that. Absolutely. So, John, what do you think that what is your definition of a life well lived?
A life well lived. I mean, how many people can I help today?
Love it.
Right.
Yes. Everybody should ask that, in my humble opinion. You know, I wake up every day, and part of my intention is to make 2 people minimum smile. You know, and because I'm a rainbow farter, bro. I mean, I love life. I love people. Trust, I have my freaking problems, man, and I got them every day on the daily. But it's like this too shall pass, man. And I overlap my happiness. That's why I teach the people that I coach. You know, like if you and I are going to go to lunch, and you'll be like, "Oh man, I'm meeting Fergie for lunch." That lunch is going to end. You were happy to meet me. That lunch is going to end. You have to keep doing shit that's going to bring happiness into your life. And that's what I really believe in. I think that that's what you do for people, from my humble aspect. And squad, we are going to take my good friend John Egan through our leveling up lightning round just as soon as we get back from thanking our sponsors and affiliates. Time to shine today. Podcast Varsity Squad. It's Scott Ferguson. We are back with my good friend John. And John Egan, a recovery, a former addict, a true sobriety person that lives sobriety right now. And John, you and I could talk an hour on each one of these questions, but you have 5 seconds with no explanations.
Got it.
You ready to rock?
I think so.
Let's do this. And they all can be answered. What's the best leveling up advice that John's ever received?
Your pain's the greatest blessing.
Yes. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Praying every morning on my knees.
Thank you for saying that. You see me, I'm in my doldrums. You're like, man, Fergie just doesn't seem like he's feeling it today. What book might you hand me?
Viktor Frankl's Search for Meaning.
Search for Man's freaking one of the best books. It sits on my mental, has been there. John, what's your most commonly used emoji when you text?
The 2 eyes as I mess with some friends.
Love it. What was John's New Year's resolution?
I don't have a New Year's I don't do New Year's resolutions.
Me neither. Chess or checkers?
I'm going to say chess because I don't know it well.
Beautiful. Is there any charity and organization you like to give your time or money to, John?
Anything with veterans.
Love it. Thank you for saying that. Hear that, my fellow vets? Awesome. Last question, and you can elaborate on this one a little bit, John, but what is the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
Oh God, classic rock. So the end of the, I'm gonna be it's the end of the 60s into the 70s. Definitely Beatles, Stones.
Love it. I love it. Maybe you gotta get some great taste, brother. Awesome, John. Leave our squad with one last knowledge nugget that we can take with us, internalize, and take action
on. There are no conditions on spiritual principles. So my advice is stop saying I'll love you if, I'll forgive you if, I'll respect you if, just put a period after the principle. I love, period. I forgive, period. I respect, period.
I love that, man. I love that. And squad, I know you've loved this episode with my good friend, John Egan. And, someone that would compare himself to his siblings, and he found and worked out in different ways for himself, and he dropped so many knowledge nuggets that I'm just going to kind of go through my 3 pages of notes here and pick out my favorite ones. But he's never met anyone that's too dumb to get sober. That really stood out to me. He finds that people are finding relief in the substance. Luxury becomes a necessity. Drugs are not the problem. It's a temporary solution to a much bigger problem. August 15th of 2007 was a huge date for him. And I'm so proud of him. And he'll tell you that, sobriety, it's a lifestyle. It's principles, it's integrity, it's discipline, it's accountability. Just because you don't drink doesn't mean you're sober. There's other aspects that go into that. And he'll remind you that in recovery, there are no shortcuts. You got to own it. You got to do the freaking work and get in there and surround yourself with the people like John that can help you take that next step. You want you to own yourself so you can come from a place of forgiveness. Forgive yourself, forgive others. You know, and he'll say that he might not be what he wants to be, but he's not who he was. And that is key in everybody's life. You know, he wants you to sleep on a conscious-free pillow. I freaking love that. You know, he says pain is our greatest blessing. And then there's no conditions on spiritual principles. It's like if I say, you know what, honey, I forgive you for, you know, letting the dog poop on the floor. But no, just forgive. You know, just forgive and love and feel it. And that's what we say here at Time to Shine today. And I'm so humbled and so grateful to have interviewed John. He was so transparent. It was beautiful what he laid out. I love this guy's guts. He's earned his varsity letter here at Time to Shine today. Thank you so much for coming on, John. I can't wait to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. God bless everyone.
Bye now.